to that moment that you decided to tackle that $100,000 worth of debt, right? Because a lot of folks can see that number and say, well, you know what? Screw it. Debt is a norm. Like everybody's in debt. It's kind of just how we exist as a society. So, what is it that switched the flip for you?
Let me think about that. So there's a couple ways I could answer this. So even though earlier I shared I was 100,000 in debt, at the moment I actually didn't know how much debt I had. I just knew
Mm.
that I had a lot. Like I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but I
Oh,
knew I
you
had a
definitely
fuck ton
are.
of
That's
debt.
this kind of show.
Yeah, I just knew that every semester I was signing these huge promissory notes of like $20,000, $30,000 and just kind of thinking it'll all work out. My parents say it's all going to work out in the end. So yes,
Yeah.
sign it
That's
away
the
with the
advice everybody
Citibank.
gets.
Yeah, you'll just get a job and you'll figure it out. Don't worry, Rose. And so I just knew I owed a lot and I had this big monthly payment, but I didn't, there were a lot of different loan providers and places that I owed money to. So I just knew it was a lot.
Mm.
And there was this sort of blindness and head in the sand approach. And that's why I live paycheck to paycheck, because I would
Mm.
just sort of spend and hope for the best and really only check my bank account when I overdrafted. I got a notification. So there was this real kind of denial and blindness
Yeah.
because it was overwhelming. And often when we feel overwhelmed, we'd rather just not face it, right?
Hmm.
So there was a moment when I realized I didn't like the career that I was in. I didn't like the job. I remember seeing my managing director, who was at the pinnacle of success at in the career field that I was in. He was wearing a Rolex, had this nice buttoned up shirt with cufflinks, and I remember him hanging up the phone after talking to his wife because she would call him all the time to give updates about his kids, and he literally said, "Man, I wonder when I'll be able to stop working." And
Ugh.
I was that like I felt crushed because I was like, wait, isn't he making tons of money and this is what he's where I'd want to get to?
Mm.
And then I realized, but he doesn't want to work, like he doesn't feel free.
Yeah.
And that's what got the wheels turning. And then I realized actually a lot of the people that I worked with on the trading floor, they would say things like, thank God it's Friday and oh man, it's Monday. So there was, like I said, I think it's the same spirit that had me go on this gap year. Like I was
Hmm.
hungry for life, to experience life, not just follow some path that was laid out blindly in front of me. And so I think it was that same spirit that had me start questioning, like, there's got to be more to life than this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like some huge, like health accident or some health scare, one of those like shocking moments. It was just more of a gradual realization of like, okay, this is not what I want,
Yeah.
and no one's going to do this for me.
Yeah.
I have to handle this. So the first sort of courageous action started with me just looking at where I stood, which sounds like a simple step, but inside that took a lot of courage. So I just said, you know what? I took a deep breath. Whatever it is, it's not going away, so I might as well look at it. So I
Yeah.
logged into all my numbers, all my like student loan provider accounts, and I tallied up everything I owed as well as everything I owned, which was a little bit in checking and a little bit in a 401k. And I put up this piece of paper on the living room wall. And I remember standing there in my pajamas and I was like, 50,000 to here and 30,000 there and 100,000 of debt. And
Hmm.
then, 5,000 of checking and savings or whatever I magically managed to save up by accident.
Yeah.
And the number was this huge negative net worth number. And even though it was like, okay, well, all right, this is a lot, but it felt extremely empowering, like this moment of clarity and empowerment just unlocked in that moment, because I was like, I know where I stand and
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it now.
I think
So
that's
that is the
important.
moment where everything started.
Yeah. That's really important for folks because oftentimes if you don't know kind of that baseline, you don't know, you can't formulate a plan, right? When you don't know where you're starting from. So the head in the sand, it's ostrich tendencies that I think that we have as just wanting to
People.
avoid the reality of things. It's not actually going to make the problem go away, like you mentioned. And there is something to be said about, well, at least I know it can't get any worse than it is right now. So if we know what the worst is, let's start making a plan to get to the other side of that. So tell me about that plan, right? So you see your numbers. What's your first step to actually creating this payoff plan that took you, you said 4 years, right?
Yeah. One great approach is to take it piece by piece. So I
Mm,
approached it zero by zero. I thought, because 100,000 in the negative is intimidating. And that's actually, that intimidation factor is what gets people to not even want to start in the first place and just
right.
not try. So, because I thought, I want to be financially free, millionaire. If I was thinking that, it would have felt so unattainable. I would have just shut down.
Hmm.
So, my first approach was just, let me just get down 1 0 at a time. And even though I'm a self-made millionaire now and have a lot more financial freedom than I started with, at the beginning, my definition of financial freedom was just zero.
Huh.
In fact, it was just like one less zero than I had, from a negative 100,000 to just negative 10,000. Let me just focus all my efforts on just removing that 1 0 in the negative, and and then from there, focus on the next zero and the next. And I think that's how to do it, because you'll see the next mountaintop once you get to the first mountaintop,
Hmm.
and a couple years later you will look back and it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. I think oftentimes too, there has to be sort of like a mindset shift, right? That accompanies the lifestyle changes that you make, whether that's, just being more open to diversifying your income, being open to maybe pursuing a different career that pays you more. Just like you have to become very curious, I think, when it comes to money, right? Especially if what you've been taught is not necessarily conducive to the goals that you have around it. So, can you talk us through both like the biggest mindset shifts and the biggest lifestyle changes that you made in that first year to get that momentum going?
Absolutely. There's a lot of good mindset stuff as well as strategic tactical things that you need to do. So on the mindset side, what I found is, we always we might have the best intentions and financial goals, but at the end of the day, we'll always only act in alignment with our identity.
Mm,
So the process that I take people through is, first, let's find out what your money identity is. And to figure out what is your money identity, it's really just like a reverse engineering process of, look at your results. What do your finances look like? What are the financial tendencies that you have that keep happening over and over? And let's try to reverse engineer from that. Therefore, someone who is always in debt and always ends up paying for things in debt must have the money identity of someone who thinks, I am someone who can only get by with debt, or I'm someone who only uh, sorry, or I'm someone who will always be in debt.
mhm,
And that was actually the case for me.
mm,
And when I did this whole reflection exercise, which is really just journaling, and I have a series of prompts that I take people through as well, is looking back at your family history, what your parents told you about money, how they handled money growing up, some formative experiences that you had about money. And for me, I realized my parents had always relied on debt as well, and so that's what I saw them do. And that was the solution that they gave me as well. So I just inherited this money identity of, oh yeah, debt is just how you do things. I'm
mhm,
just always going to be in debt because that's how life is. And so just that awareness of, oh, I have this money identity, and that's why my finances have all played out the way it's always played out. I
right.
always end up in credit card debt no matter how much money lands in my bank account, etc. So that's a really powerful moment when you just you like get the whole picture.
Mhm,
Oh, that's been my money identity. So you
yeah,
recognize that. Then you release it. That's more of an emotional process of just forgiving yourself, because whatever money identity you have right now, it's not your fault. You just inherited it. But now you're aware, so you can forgive yourself for whatever money mistakes you've made. And then the third step would be to rewrite that. And you can just choose a marginally better money identity. Like, instead of I'm someone who'll always be in debt, it's I'm someone who can learn to pay for things in cash.
mm,
That's it. You're
mhm,
not saying I'm someone who will be rich, just I'm someone who can learn to pay for things in cash.
yeah,
And that starts kind of rewiring, and that starts kind of influencing your daily actions.
mhm,
So, yes, you always act in alignment with your identity. So, the most high leverage thing you can do is not to jump into the tactics and strategies, which I've got plenty of, but to first start there with the money identity.